organizations want people to work for them, you have to enter into employment contract with your employees. These employment contracts are regulated by employment legislations. These legislations set the legal minimum every organization has to be in compliance with so that you can recruit people. And there are so many laws that is regulating this. Let's see some of those today. And this legal minimum is very important. If you don't have any idea about it, you may have to consult a lawyer or a solicitor to understand these legal concerns. Employment Rights Act 1996, Employment Relations Act 2004, Equal Pay Act, Data Protection Act, National Minimum Wage Act, Race Relations Act, Sex Discrimination Act, Disability Discrimination Act, Employment Equality, Religion or Belief Regulations, Employment Equality Age Regulations 2006, Employment Equality Sexual Orientation Regulation 2003 are some of those to name, but there are many more that you need to be in compliance with. Statement of employment must be given to the employee within the first 2 months of the starting date of this employment contract. In that statement, you have to have the basic information, the name of the employer and the employee, the date of employment started, the job title and the summary of the duties, the period of employment, is it a permanent position or a temporary, and the place of work, how much will be paid and what is the method of payment. And it should include the information such as travel allowances and any other deductions from paid hours of work, holiday entitlement, procedures for dealing with absence from work through illness or any other reasons, and how to notify the employer if absent. Those details should be there as well. The details of pension scheme if applicable, detail of how to terminate the employment, is it about the notice and how much notice the employer has to give, how much notice the employee has to give, the disciplinary rules, the grievance procedure and so on. This has to be very, very important legal requirement within first 2 months of your employment. They should be given. Employment Rights Act 1996. This act provides the basic employment protection for workers. This establishes the minimum procedure for making wages that makes unauthorized wages deduction illegal. Nobody can deduct the salary if it is not authorized. And this act requires employers to guarantee the payment if you don't even have any work for that particular period of time. And specific requirement for Sunday working as well. And this law requires you to provide the statement of employment, because this employment law doesn't require you to give you the employment contract in hand to the employees. It is not a requirement, but every employer should provide the basic information of this contract. That is what we call the statement of employment. Employment Rights Act 1996 further talks about time off from work, entitlement of paid holiday leave, entitlement of employees to have time off for personal needs, public duties, statutory leave, maternity leave and paternity leave. And it talks about dismissals and redundancy as well, requirement related to dismissal procedure, the right to receive fair compensation in relation to the case of unfair dismissal from work, and it requires to make payment for redundancy as well. Another main area that is regulated by Employment Rights Act 1996 is about the dispute resolution, that has the regulations on the requirement for fair disciplinary and grievances procedure, right for employees to refer dispute related to employment, dismissal, etc. to an employment tribunal as well. Now let us move to Employment Relations Act 2004. This is covering the recognition of trade union based on the size of the company, unfair dismissal of strikers as well. Further, it covers the maternity leave, parental leave and time off for special caring of dependents if you have some close relatives. Further, this is talking about the employment tribunal awards, maximum level of award and the type of award. And this act is providing right to employees to accompany someone with in case of disciplinary and grievances hearing. And this is giving the part-time workers the equal right as of a full-time worker in terms of pay, work condition and holiday. Now let us move to Equal Pay Act. This act establishes the requirement for equal payment for both men and women in the same establishment, and this act further provide the method of determining the pay equality based on the job review, the job responsibility, not the job title or the name. Data Protection Act. Now, when you employ people to work for you, you may have to collect certain data from them. There are personal data and sensitive data as well. And this act requires company to register certain type of data with the Information Commissioner's Office. This act covers certain areas. You have to fairly and lawfully process the data you collected, and you should process this data for limited purpose. Whatever that is collected for, you can process it for. You can't go beyond that, and you only collect adequate, relevant data, not excessive, and you always keep the data very accurate. And you never keep the data collected for longer than what is necessary, and you have to process this data in accordance with the right of the employees, and you have to keep it very safe. Maybe password protection, you should not give access to every single one, and you cannot transfer this data for anyone without the permission of the data owner. It's turn for Race Relations Act. This act gives protection against direct or indirect discrimination of someone on the ground of race, color, nationality, citizenship, or ethnic origin. The direct discrimination may occur when someone is treated less favorably on the ground of race, color, nationality, citizenship, or ethnic origin. Indirect discrimination may occur when an employer applies an apparent general rule that gives disadvantage for certain people based on their race, color, nationality, citizenship, or ethnic origin. This act applied to the way employers recruit, train, promote, and select people in companies as well, if they use something based on the ground of race, color, nationality, citizenship, or ethnic origin. It's turned for Sex Discrimination Act. This act provides protection against direct or indirect discrimination of someone on the ground of sex when employers recruit, train, promote, and dismiss people. Employees work for organization before, after they leave, if they feel that they had been discriminated while they were at job, can bring action against under this law. Less favorable treatment of women on the ground of pregnancy or maternity leave count as unlawful sex discrimination under this act as well. Sexual harassment is also covered in here. That includes insensitive jokes, display of sexually explicit materials, or vulgar comments, or even gesture. Now let's have a look on the draw about Disability Discrimination Act 2005. The act makes it unlawful for an employer of any size with the exemption of armed forces to directly discriminate against a disabled person when they deal with employees. Under the act, an employer cannot refuse to interview, employ, train, or promote a disabled person simply because of their disability. Employers have the duty under this act to make reasonable adjustments to the workplace to enable a disabled person to work or continue working, for example, providing a wheelchair access to the work location. Now let us touch Employment Equality, Religion or Belief Regulations 2003. This act provides protection against discrimination of an employee or a job candidate on the grounds of their religion or belief. This regulation provides protection against harassment and victimization as well. When we come to harassment, unwanted conduct that violates people's dignity or creates an intimidating or an offensive atmosphere is considered as harassment. The victimization is about treating people less favorably because of something they have done under or in connection with the regulation. There are limited exemptions when you want to recruit people for a church. For example, the appointment of a church minister where the applicant is restricted to a particular faith. Employment Equality, Sexual Orientation Regulations 2003. This regulation applies for direct or indirect discrimination on the ground of sexual orientation towards persons of the same sex, lesbian or gays, the opposite sex, heterosexuals, and the same or opposite sex, bisexuals as well. Employment Equality Age Regulations 2006. This regulation affects all areas of employment, including recruitment, terms of employment and the conditions of employment, promotions and transfers, the provision of training, provision of benefits, dismissal, retirement and occupational pension. This legislation provides for a standard retirement age of 65. Compulsory retirement age below 65 are normally not justified under this act. In addition, employees have the right to request to work beyond that age as well under this act.